what are some things that we can actually start to play that are going to help develop our ear? And so many people, I remember back in the day having records and even later than that, CDs, look out. But I remember ear training back in the day and starting to associate notes that are in my head onto the guitar. I used to start with a big mistake. And the big mistake I used to start with was trying to figure out guitar parts first to train my ear and start to associate it. Don't do that. If you're just starting with your ear training to start to understand what notes are in your head versus the guitar, I highly recommend that instead of trying to figure out guitar parts, you try to figure out vocal lines. Very simple vocal lines from songs you enjoy. So instead of sitting there and trying to be like, wow, that guitar chord, what is that? That's going from 0 to hero. You'll get there, but don't start there. You're only looking for failure and sadness if you start there. So instead, you want to go with what is the most present sound in the recording mix, the vocals, and what can I try to play around with, the vocals, and try to match, especially very simple ones. So I'll give you 2 examples of how simple this can be. I remember being young and listening to a very simple song, and the progression sounded pretty simple as well, at least in the version I was listening to. The progression was this. You might be wondering, what the heck is that? Well, I started training my ear to the hit song that we all know. Yes, I started training my ear to My Heart Will Go On, Celine Dion, okay? Don't come at me for that at all. But it was one of those things where, as an example, that is such a simple vocal line that it becomes very easy when you isolate it. So what I want you to pay attention to is that it's a challenge to do this, but watch how actually simple just the vocal line is. Don't pay attention to the bass and the lower register I was just playing. Just focus on how simple this vocal line is. There it is. There it is. All right, so again. And again, I just did that on the spot. So, of course it was a mistake. But with that, it goes to show you can start figuring it out. And all I was playing there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes. 5 notes. That's it. So you can start to see, okay, I think I can do that. I think I can figure that out. Again, it's far easier when you take a simple vocal line and start to figure it out. There are things out there like punk rock and stuff that have very simple vocal lines. There's that band, Simple Plan, that did that song perfect. What was that song? It was like a... right? But that vocal line is just a little bit of... That's it. So it allows you to start to focus on something much simpler than a massive shreddy guitar solo that is almost impossible to figure out. So I highly recommend you start finding simple vocal lines and just sitting down and experimenting and just trying to figure them out. You will fail. I promise you that, because I did many times, but that is what we need to do to start to get it right. So don't feel like that's not a normal part of the process or you're an outcast. So every day, sit down, pull up one of your favorite songs that is a singing, simple vocal line, and just start to test the waters. Start to figure out what's going on. Start trying to play along with it. And then you can start practicing more and more with that. And you can get into harder songs with more defined and wild, crazy vocal lines. You could start with something like, Celine Dion or Simple Plan, and eventually go to something like Queen or Adele, where they have all of these vocal shifts and changes. But again, it's the most present piece of the mix in the recording. So you don't have much guesswork when it comes to knowing if you were right or wrong in what you were practicing. And that's the key. So big takeaway here is that you need to make sure that you're starting this process with vocal melodies so that you can hear those. More than likely, they're already in your head, right? Because that's where we need to start from. We need to have something that's actually in our head, and then we start to apply it to the guitar. And by doing it with simple vocal melodies, life becomes a lot easier in that process. So I highly recommend doing it that way and really training your ear in that way for the vocal melodies.